And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101. Good evening to all of you who are joining us in Guyana and across the diaspora in the Caribbean. Those of you who are joining us from Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua, the Bahamas, Grenada, St. Lucia, uh, Barbados. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening, and welcome to all of you who are joining from uh, North America, the United States of America, Canada. Um, those of you who are joining us from Europe in particular. Um, those who are joining us from England, that's where lots of our people are. Welcome to Politics 101. Another day, another set of development in our homeland, Guyana. It's what we call the morning after. As you know, on the weekend we had the Coffee 250 forum on the state of African Guyanese. That forum caused quite a lot of stir because Coffee 250 dared to dub the present government in Guyana as an apartheid government, a government that is practicing apartheid. And of course, the government went berserk. But the conference was held on the weekend, and we are now looking at the reaction of the government. Welcome to Politics 101. You're joining us from the quarantine. If you're joining us from out there in the Essequibo, welcome to Politics 101. This evening, we are going to be talking with Mr. Lincoln Lewis, trade unionist and political activist. And of course, we are going to be talking about everything politics, including the forum held on Sunday. Of course, we know that yesterday the PPP top brass, they met the cordon off the whole of Rob Street, and they met yesterday, and our intelligence is that they met to discuss, among other things, the Coffee 250 conference. Welcome to Politics 101. I noticed Sister Ordell is joining us from Den Amstel, one of the foundation villages there on the west coast of Demerara. And, you know, the villages there, Iflot, where lots of people mix village. They have the Indian section, the African section, Stroudville. Lots of our people there in Stroudville. Welcome. And Marie's joining us from New Jersey. Mark is from the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., one of my homes. Welcome to Politics 101. So we are still grappling with the consequences of us daring to call the PPP by what it should have been called a long time ago, and that's an apartheid regime. Good evening, Lynette, joining us there from Brooklyn. Welcome to Politics 101. You all are coming in. Queens is in the house, Queens, New York. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday evening. We are just getting out of the month of emancipation and moving into the September month. Things are moving very, very quickly. Things are moving very quickly. They're talking about local government election before the end of the year. The question is, are we going to go to local government election with the current voters list? So much is wrong with the political architecture. So much is wrong with the electoral architecture. And the opposition leader said that his party will not be going to an election without a clean voters list. The WPS said that it will not be contesting an election without a clean voters list. I don't know that the AFC has made a categorical statement, but one would assume that the AFC also would be concerned about the fact that there is not a clean voters list. See, when you're confronting a dictatorship, when you're confronting an apartheid regime, you have to be decisive. Can't leave things to chance. And why are they panicking? The word is that the PPP is panicking. And we saw that. We saw the Attorney General taking to the newspapers and the airwaves. We saw the Vice President taking to the airwaves in a press conference and threatening it, Padaji, lying on Vincent Alexander. And Vincent Alexander is about to take him to the cleaners. Lawyers' letters already been sent to Jack Dio. And we're going to try to get Brother Vincent here either tomorrow or Thursday to deal with these issues. But they obviously panicked. And they panicked because we were decisive. We weren't playing around. See, one of the weaknesses of our politics is that sometimes we play around too much. We're not frank. We try to be politically correct. And that's what they like. But here we were not being politically correct. Mr. Lincoln Lewis is going to join us in a minute or so, giving you all time to settle in and to be ready for the discussion tonight. Why is the PPP panicking? They have all the power at their disposal. They said that, nobody listens to us. Thank you, Kyla. Listening to Uhuru. I sometimes forget that designation. Yes, Uhuru means in Swahili an independent person, independent. One of the first books I read on Kenya was a book called Not Yet Uhuru, written by Oginga Odinga, who was the vice president to Jomo Kenyatta. Eventually, they parted ways. Of course, Jomo Kenyatta was a Kikuyu, and Oginga was from the Luo tribe, the two big tribes in Kenya, and their sons, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, have been battling it out for leadership of Kenya over the last decade and a half to 2 decades. Thank you very much, Kyla. Let's bring in our guest straight away so we can get as much from him as possible. Brother Lincoln, good evening.
Good evening, David. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, friends and comrades, brothers and sisters.
Did you get a chance to view the Coffee 250 forum this weekend?
Yes, I've done so. And let me, from the outset, commend everyone. I believe it's a wonderful job that was done by the team. I believe this is enough. This is enough sending a signal that the African community can mobilize. The leadership can hold hands in times when challenges are confronting us. I believe that they have done a good job, and let me again commend you guys for doing that. I believe it's enough, in fact, to cause concerns in other quarters.
Concerns in other quarters. You wrote a letter this past weekend, and it was what I considered a stinging letter. I wouldn't say one of the best because all your letters and your commentaries are on target. But this weekend you addressed the question of the inequities in the society against the backdrop of the designation of the government as an apartheid government. And one of the things that struck me, I had not considered that angle before, was your observation that African Guyanese are in those sectors of the economy in which they have to pay taxes because they're working with the government. You can't mess with taxes because you're working with the tax collector. And so African Guyanese are paying taxes, are forced to pay taxes, given where they work. And other ethnic groups that are not in the public sector and to dodge taxes. And I found that quite instructive. It's another form of oppression of African Guyanese. In a sense, African Guyanese are forced to pay taxes and others dodge taxes. And when the government comes up with its budget, invariably, it gives more money to the tax dodgers. So in effect, the government purse is partly carried by public servants, including teachers and nurses and members of the military, while others, given where they're located, they are not paying as much taxes. We heard successive governments complain about how much money the private sector owes in taxes. I found that quite riveting, quite instructive in this discourse about marginalization and apartheid. Expand on it for me.
Let me say to you that it don't stop there. You know. Let me give you examples. When the government takes position to give subsidy or give free fertilizer to the rice farmers, that money comes out of the consolidated fund. And who contribute to the consolidated fund are the same people that you've mentioned there. It goes beyond that, where in the private sector, every time there's a budget, the government seek to set up what we call the government give concessions or reduce taxes from something. The concessions that are being given in this country, they are given to the private sector. The private sector that is predominantly is dominated with another group, by another group, and in many occasions they support the government quietly or what. We need to understand that For instance, vehicles. Many of the vehicles that you see on the street, those vehicles are what we call, those vehicles are on the, are being given, the owners of those vehicles are being given tax-free concession. And that's something that we need to look at. Those top-of-the-line vehicles that we see that you may consider to be normally $25 and $30 million. Many of them are tax concessions given to those people. Unlike the normal public servant, you have to be at a certain level before you can start receiving a tax-free. And that tax-free concession, on many occasions, a number of them are below a 2000cc vehicle. And it is for that reason, I believe that we can see very clearly who get in the hog in the society. The people who have the strong or big mining concessions are not African people, but they get tax-free fuel, they get tax-free vehicle, equipment, and all these type of things. But the man who working inside the area, African people working most time in those pits under unsafe conditions, right? Our people have to pay the taxes. If you go to the big mining companies like big gold and bauxite companies in this country, they get tax-free concession. The masses in this country don't get it. The masses, primarily the African people, don't get it. So we have been carrying or saddled with the burdens of this society, the financial and economic burdens of this society. So, my brother, you need to understand, we need to check it out, and we will get to understand.
Let me read for the audience exactly what you wrote. And you say, by virtue of the sheer numbers, Africans have been the single largest group that has not only kept the nation wheels of production turning, but financed the state spending through taxes. Whereas tax deduction could be manipulated by those in the formal private sector, and many in the agriculture sector, rice, livestock, greens, etc., do not pay taxes. Public servants cannot skew the numbers or avoid taxation because taxes are deducted before receiving their pay. Efforts to secure livable wages and salaries and better working conditions continue to be thwarted by government trampling the right to collective bargaining, thereby reducing purchasing power and negatively affecting standard of living. I find that our audience here this evening, I find that paragraph by Brother Lincoln to be quite instructive. Whereas, go ahead. No, whereas
this didn't start now, David.
I know, but what I'm saying,
this thing started since 1992,
Yes, but what I'm saying, the way you framed it against the backdrop of the conversation. You see, when we said apartheid, we are saying people know they're living under apartheid. But what leaders and thinkers do is that you frame people's condition in such a way that they can quickly identify with it. Now, we talk about taxes all the time. Oh my, economists like to talk about taxes. But nobody has talked about taxes within the context of racial inequality. That's the point I'm making. You have spoken about taxes before as a trade unionist, as workers. And so if you're a worker, whether you're Indian, African, Amerindian worker, you get that analysis. What you have done here this Sunday is to take the analysis beyond class and take it to race. And that is what is most instructive here, is the way in which you took taxes and show how even taxes contributes to the African marginalization and to racial inequality. Go ahead.
Yes, let me say to you that this thing started since 1991. The first, this whole question of economic marginalization started since 1992. It started, the first set of workers that were attacked, the two first set of workers that were attacked were the public servants who were in the custom and excise department. When they selected that whole group, the entire group, including Clarence True, to get rid of them. What they did is the cream of the crop. These are people who spend their lives, or they built a career in customs and excise. They destroyed, they moved them out. And they didn't care about what, happened after. They moved immediately after to GPL with Steve Boville and some other persons. Hamilton and others, they get rid of them. And they moved to bauxite. They moved to bauxite in 1992. By November, they were saying to the bauxite workers, they said in the unions that they are going to cut the production level to 250,000 tons, and then some people will lose their jobs. When the union went publicly, this government, that government, this government denied that they ever said so. And by February next year, they were prepared then to come to the table to finally accept it, that they are going to send workers home. They didn't do it to sugar. They did it to bauxite. And you know what they used? They said the IMF recommendation was that they need to privatize bauxite. But what they didn't say to the state, to this country, is that the IMF did say that, but they put sugar and bauxite. They were the two agencies that they claim ought to be privatized. Check 92. This is 2022. Check and see the time that we are talking about. And sugar has not yet been privatized. They're still resisting it. So why you want to privatize bauxite, get rid of all the workers, and you don't want to touch sugar? This is what I call economic genocide by Jack Dio and a group of them. This is what they set out to do. To get rid of black people in a different form.
And that's the point here. That's the point here. You know, I had to go and find the book that I used in one of my earlier classes a couple of years ago on African American politics. I want people to read the title: American Apartheid. All right. Now, this fella who thinks that he's the brightest thing in the world, Nandal, would have us believe that you can only talk about apartheid in South Africa. And if the situation is not exactly as it was in South Africa, you can't call it apartheid. No, apartheid is a generic term that means racial discrimination, racial inequality, racial separation, racial injustice. And apartheid can be practiced in any country in the world. What made South African apartheid unique is that they made it into settled law. But there was apartheid and is apartheid in many countries around the world. Because you don't have to put apartheid in your law. You practice apartheid. There's another book that I use by President Jimmy Carter called Pain, Not Apartheid. And he's calling the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians apartheid. So apartheid is not just confined to South Africa. Apartheid is not just legal apartheid. Apartheid occurs wherever there is racial inequality and injustice. And no government, as Henry Jeffrey tells us, is going to put apartheid in its laws in 2020. But that does not mean there is not apartheid. Freedom is a contested term. So when they tell us about freedom in Guyana, they're behaving as though freedom has some linear meaning. There was freedom during slavery, but for the slave masters had the freedom to enslave Africans. So freedom itself is contested. Oh, we have freedom in Guyana. Well, some people have freedom in Guyana. Some people have freedom to accumulate wealth because they're given the resources, as Brother Lincoln is telling us here tonight. And some people don't have the resources to accumulate wealth. If you're a public servant and you're working from paycheck to paycheck, because governments do not respect collective bargaining, and they take upon themselves to give you 2 and 3%, 2 and 3 and 4% increase of $80,000 amounts to less than 80 cents a day. 80 cents a day, less than 80 cents a day. And so the freedom of public servants in Guyana to accumulate wealth to leave for the next generation does not exist. Whereas those who dodge taxes and then are given government subsidy on top of that, they then have disposable income that becomes the source of accumulation of wealth left for the children. That is what we are dealing with in Guyana. You see, when they tell us about where's the evidence, they want us to give them numbers, figures. But what we are doing, we're not giving you numbers and figures. We are giving you a scenario. And that's what Lincoln Lewis did. He said, taxes People think taxes is a non-ethnic thing. You're a citizen, you pay taxes to the government, and then the government gives you back in service. But what Lincoln Lewis is saying, taxes in an ethnically imbalanced society, an ethnically divided society, becomes a tool of ethnic oppression. That's the point Lincoln Lewis is making. And he's able to do that because we dare to say that it's apartheid. Just as scholars in America are saying the treatment of African Americans amount to apartheid. That's what we're saying in Guyana. When Jimmy Carter says what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians is apartheid. And in Guyana, we have reached the point of apartheid. And that's what we are saying. And that's what is sending them scampering. Lincoln, let me read another part of your letter. There are young people with 6 to 8 CXC and university qualifications and can get work commensurate with their qualifications. This is not because they aren't looking, but because of how they look. This is not because they aren't looking, but because of how they look. The cooperative sector, where the African economy dominates, is now under siege by government, who rather than work with the co-ops, is using the power of the state to take full control. The cooperative economy is worth approximately $50 billion and represent workers' assets, money and land. The cooperative credit unions provide loans at low interest rates for home ownership and repairs of cars, etc. Today we are witnessing a targeted onslaught of the African community from Jagdeo and other East Indians who appoint themselves authority to determine the African reality. Lincoln, I want you to talk about the cooperatives, because I think there's a lot of evidence there. Tell us how does
let me tell you what.
There is a
policy buttressed by an orchestrated program to move to take the lands of the co-ops, the cooperatives, the lands that they own, and give it to their friends. Give it, and the friends that they're talking about the East Indian community. There's a move to do it. It is being done on the quarantine. It's been one of West Demerara. It is being done on the highway. A number of places they are constantly doing this thing. I had the opportunity until yesterday to listen to a presentation made by a group of people, 2 young men who are aware, in fact, of where the lands are, like in the Kanji Creek, the Borbis River. They know where the lands are and they know what is taking place. And they brought it to my attention yesterday, what is being done and who is behind it. Let me say to you, you've seen the fiasco at the Guyana Public Service Union credit union that now attracting the attention of the court. It is the first time a co-op of that nature have come out to say we are going to give you loans for housing, we are going to give you loans for cars. In normal circumstances, you would have had to the persons who would like to have that would have had to go to the bank. What the GPSU Credit Union did was to really challenge the bank. The banking system has been used as one of those institutions have been used as agencies to discriminate against persons from the African community who approach them about loans. I know of persons who have gone there. I've known of couples who have gone there. Mixed couples, in fact. Husband may be African and Indian wife, Indian partner or wife, and the African man being denied the loans, or loan while he may have all the supporting credentials to acquire the loan. And all that was happening is that I've seen it. It happened in my own office. What you did is just to change the name. Same business plan, change the name from the African man to the Indian wife, put it there, put the same documents, and send them back to the same bank. And within hours or days, the people would have had the money in their bank account. This is a program set out to marginalize African people in this society. It's a serious situation. The banks are in cahoots. So we have to come right back. If we use the money in the credit unions, for instance, I know that there was an idea of moving to bring a number of the credit unions and make them what we call a mega credit union, where you can start giving loans at a certain level. You can work towards putting in ATMs throughout the country. You can, working together. That would have challenged the banks. So what they did now is that rather than allowing the African community to do what they know best in empowering themselves, what they're doing now is putting all systems in place to destroy that economy, which will keep us in perpetual poverty. And these are the type of things that we have to do.
And of course, that's the structural racism that we're talking about, because the assumption is that Black people can't do business. We hear that all the time. All right? And if they can't do business, then you're taking a risk lending them money. So you essentialize Black people by saying something is wrong with their brains, something is wrong with their minds, so they can't do business. It means, therefore, you're taking a risk giving them loans. And so the bank is not taking up and saying, oh, we're not going to give them loans because we don't like them. We make assumptions about this color. And the assumption is that they can't do business. And we even repeat that in the Black community. So when we go with the best business plan, we don't get loans because we are essentialized as being naturally not able to do business. You then go and you form your credit unions, your cooperatives. So you're opening up new avenues to get access to capital. They then move against the credit union. And they're saying we are closing down the credit unions because you all don't manage them properly. Again, what's the assumption? Black people can't run nothing. So you can't do business. You can't run nothing.
The government, you know, David, the government is there. If they recognize a deficiency in a community, is to seek to correct it, strengthen it, that deficiency.
What you mean by the government is there? It's an ethnic divided society. You think an
Yes.
Indian ethnic government is going to correct the deficiencies in the black community and vice versa?
All that I am saying, David, is that what they are doing is arguing a case against what ought to be their role. They are accepting that they are discriminating in favor of one group against another. That's what they're doing.
Yes,
when they say that you can't run anything.
And what I'm saying,
if you recognize that they're weak,
yes,
if they recognize,
what I'm saying is that we have to go further than what they're doing and to ask ourselves and answer the question why they're doing, what is it that drives them? What is the worldview? And lots of time we stop at what they're doing without going to the subtext. And I'm saying the subtext is the assumption that we are deficient, to use your term. We can't do business. So why invest in us with business? We can play good football. Give us football. That is the thinking. So we become a football economy because God gave us the gift to play football, but not to do business.
But here now, when you're playing the football, who plays the football and who owns the business of the football?
That's right. That's right. That's the point.
That's what you need to look at. Who owns the business?
That's the point.
But let me tell you, David, I want to say to the viewership, I want to make a point to it, that we can take back football because, you know, Dan King had made a point. He said, why should I? You come to ask me or say to me that I'm not paying the boxers enough, these black boxers enough. He said, I am paying them, but you are them and you didn't give them anything. What is happening now is that the footballers don't get anything. All they get maybe a trophy or a medal or thing to carry home. There's nothing. This government is not prepared to do anything to enhance football, that we can get professional footballers who can go to European League or the British League or so on and make money. They are not prepared to do even the athletics. They're not prepared to do anything that we can build, that we can compete, like in Jamaica, like a small country like Jamaica, that have made that investment. They're not prepared for that. They are prepared to hold them at a certain level where they can make money off of them.
And the point I'm making, Lincoln, if we think that the PPP government is going to change that, we are living in la la land. If African Guyanese are to be advanced in football, in business, you have to have African Guyanese representatives running the government, either the entire government or part of the government. We have long passed. That's why we say we're living in an apartheid state. You can't reform the PPP. You can't get the PPP to accept best practices because they are coming at it from the perspective that you are not worth it. You people are not worth it. Why waste time giving you money for business? You can't do business. So I'm saying to those in our community who are saying that, oh, the PPP giving me something and let me take it. The PPP giving you a threat. They're not giving you what is needed for development. And
then we have to start, we have to go back. We have to build the village economy. We got to go back at the villages then. We got to work with these people. Let me tell you what. The government says that, okay, we're going to give you a whole slot. And then get everybody believing in the whole slot. Well, let me tell you what. The man from Buxton or the man from Bachelor Adventure, will go for that house lot. And I'm talking to them specifically. They will go for that house lot. Not without saying to the government that we get backlands, that we can plant coconut and we can put planting, we can grow planting and we can blow other things. They're going to give them a house lot and say we give black people plenty of things, so much house lot, but they will not give the black man a 10-acre land, a 20-acre land where he can farm, he can make money, and he can have economic sustenance from that. What we have to start doing is go back to that economy, that division. We have to say it to our people. And I want to say it to them tonight, very clear. That ancestral lands that exist, as long as you're confident it come from your ancestors, occupy it. Occupy it. Challenge people who want to come to take it. Tomorrow is International African Day. Tomorrow, International. We have to start doing it differently. We have to move even where there's state land. The rule is that as long as you can apply, if you apply for 10 acres of land, you don't have to state land and you want to do a business and you apply for 10 acres, you don't have to produce a business plan. I watch people apply. Let it tell you that you can't get it. We have to stand up and we have to go beyond. I'm making this point because we got to go beyond this issue of just talking. We have mobilized at this point, right? We are galvanized. We need to galvanize this thing to another level. People need to go back to those lands. People need to take them back. Do not allow the government to dictate where you go, when you go, and how you live. We have to protect it, take back the ancestral land, go for the state land. And let me tell you what, there are concessions. There are concessions that are being offered right now for businesses, for agriculture and other purposes. If them can get the concessions, then we must get it, our people must get it. And what we do is that apply for it, go invest and apply. If they don't give you, then come let me make it public. We have to move beyond this issue. We don't have that. We have mobilized. We have mobilized. Let me tell you something. If this government was comfortable with what happened on Sunday, they would have, if they feel strongly, you better believe it, that Mr. Jagdier would have been on the airwave the same night or next morning, right? Abusing out, you don't abuse Alexander. You would have cussed out Alexander. You cuss out guys, you cuss out everybody because he's the cuss man, right? But yesterday, I observed all of them mobilize at Freedom House, from the president right down, were at Freedom House. I was expecting that by this morning, they would have come with a big statement refuting what happening. Let me tell you something, all the pressure. And we have to throw, many other persons have to throw tents. We have to, and mobilize people under those tents. We have to work. This thing, if our forebears fought slavery.
Lincoln, I've put on the screen here a comment by Lal Bahadur Singh. Two madmen can run a cake shop, David and Lewis. David and Lewis, how you all want to run a country? I am stressing, this is how the people think about us. And it is important in understanding how we mobilize. We are not going to change their minds because their minds are in the mud. They believe we can't run a cake shop. They believe that we can't run a country. So they have to run the business. They have to run the country. And they don't want our people to learn this. They want our people to believe that there is a chance under them. You might get everything.
I want you to understand. I want you to understand something. we can't wait for them. We can't wait for them to show us how it must be done. While we ask for equity, we must demand equity. We must do what that person who put that. It's indicative. The person who made that comment, it tells you one thing about them. You can take a pig out of the mud, but you can't take the mud out of the pig, right? And those people who are sending those comments, right? That is how they run their home. They go in the home. Those people suckle, some of them suckle it from the breast. That is how they see us, right? But I tell you something, if slavery, they could not hold us in the chains of slavery, I would put them on notice. They can't hold us back now.
Yeah, and you're quite correct. And I just want to take your argument into the next step. We want power. They are able to say these things, and they're able to impose their prejudices, because that's prejudice. But when you have the power to impose your prejudices, that's when it becomes racism and apartheid. And they got power, and unless black people have power, they're not going to be able to form our humanity. It's all about power. There are things that we can do without power, but the fundamental problems have to be addressed from a position of power. Black people, you all got to survive. And you all got to do what you need to survive. Brother Lincoln has given some recommendations here as to what we can do now to survive. Ultimately, we want power. And you're not going
We want to live, you know. We don't want to survive, David. Now what this thing here, we don't want to survive. We got to live. We got to live comfortable. And you understand me? We have made enough sacrifices here. Right? I observe everybody on Sunday. We are asking for his equity and not triumphalism, not dominance. You're asking for equity. Let me tell you something. And as far as I understand, equity means if you get that, we must get equal to that. Yeah. If you get 2, we must get equal to 2. Right? Don't tell me we must grovel at the table.
What we have seen.
And those people that they put in there, those trolls that they put in there, to write down, say, to take taxpayers' money, it's we money.
Yeah.
It's public servants, the police, the soldier, the black people working in them places, paying taxes. It's their money. You take it for demonize people.
Therefore, therefore, we have to take power from you. That's the point I'm trying to drive here. If you don't have power, you cannot make the fundamental structural changes. So we have diagnosed the problem. We're not going to get power tomorrow, so we have to survive. Fair enough. Go to the bank, expose them. But ultimately, it is about power. P-O-W-E-R. That is what we have to go after.
I tell you what.
Yes.
I tell you what. We ain't going to survive. We must not think that we're going to survive now. We must get what is justly ours starting as of now. The march must continue. You have what the leaders have done on Sunday is remarkable. We have to now build on that. What they have done, we have started to talk about this issue before. What they have done is to expand and improve the conversation. This conversation has to continue. As you and I talking tonight, we have to tell people what they got to do. We got to tell people, as I said earlier, we have to tell people, ancestral land, we must defend them. Don't allow these people to come on them. And there are a lot throughout this country. There are a lot throughout this country. And we need to go to the villages and we must talk with the people and show them where the lands are. They must stop. We must stop them from going in the back dam, the second and third depth, and surveying them and giving them to the courts and the supporters. We must stop them. When it comes to the state land, we must get. Don't tell me Sue can born and grow China and come here and get over 1,000-acre land, and I can't get 1 acre state land. What are you telling me, man? Huh? Why must happen? And all these people who are in this government to say, hey, you did a good job, some of them have been deprived. Some of the same people.
Lincoln Lewis, it's happening because we are allowing it to happen. Bottom line. Yes, those who have power are trampling upon us, but we are behaving as though we don't want power. We are behaving as though we think that if we ask them politely, they will give us. That if we do go by the law according to them, they will not give. They have not given us from 1992 to now, and we have to demand it, and it means that we have to get power. Power is what is going to stop Black people from being the victims of what they are now.
I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
Yes, power is a part of the package that we got to get. We can't wait till election for fight. We got to fight now. We got to get our here now. We got to start now. And I'm saying to you, let me tell you something. Them same thing what you're doing when you were here a couple of weeks ago and you trek into this village and that village, it has to be intensified. And that way you should tell your friends and comrades that we all must hold hands and do it. We can't wait because everybody will starve. They're going to give away everything by now to election and give away everything. Right? Remember, there was an election. And when the election was coming up, the president of the country gave away a whole host of television and radio license just before the election. You remember that story?
Yes.
Right? That is how they're going to do. They're going to give away. I believe that it's free for all. Right? But let me tell you something. I went to Wales and I see the Wales map. I see why they lock up Calvin London. You know why? Because Black people get some land there. Right? And those lands are ancestral lands. When you go back in Gaisuku record, their ancestral land that Gaisuku was on. Right? I want to tell you, we have to stand with those. Now I am more convinced. I was convinced all the time, but I'm more convinced now that those men that they drag in front of the courts, we have to stand with them. We have to stand with them resolutely, because there's a bunch of wicked men and women who come here and want to deprive African people of what is just yours. For the one who read just now and said that two mad men, yes. You can consider us smart, you know. You know why you consider us smart? Because we're talking their language.
Yeah, I'm not worried them, but I want to say to our people, these people are not just doing these things. They are coming at it from a worldview that is steeped in their minds. There's a systematic thinking that is going on that is driving them. Simpson said there, we have to ride and whistle. And that's the point I am trying to make here this afternoon. All right? That we have to get power in our hands, people. We have to get power in our hands. We have to, our representatives have been out of power for 2 years. And look what the side has been in power just for 2 years. Look what they have done for their people, and look what they've done against our people. Power matters. It is the package. It is the whole package. Yes, when you get power, you can misuse it. Our people were in power for 5 years, and then they
Not
use
3 years.
it.
No. Hold on, baby.
Yes.
It's 3 years. I tell you something.
Well,
I also in mathematics. This is 3 years. After 3 years, that government did nothing. They could not have done anything.
Right.
Okay. So it's 3 years. Let me put it right.
Whether it's 3 years or 5 years, we black people have to teach our government that when we give you power, you ought to use part of that power to empower us. Because when you lose the power, we got to be shrunken. That's the reality. And you have to make power moves. What Coffee 250 did on Sunday was a power move, which is say, no sugarcoating. You are an apartheid regime. And if you're an apartheid regime, it means that you are an ungodly regime. It means that there is no hope with you in power. So the logical step is that we ride in, to use Simpson term, no to power. All right? That's the reason they come out swinging. Because they know that once you frame them a certain way, people will react a certain way. And that's what they fear. Go ahead.
David, look, you don't have to go very far to understand who you deal with. Remember, a current minister said that he was a chatry and the rest of them, even of another class, a lower class. You remember that story?
Yes.
If the man could have said a thing about the people who look like him, what do you believe he will do to you and others who look like you? Huh? But the man he has the power. He has the levers of power. And he wants to determine if you and I can go to the same place at the same time. And if you and I can sit down and talk and discuss anything. And then I tell you what, I want to commend Coffee 250 for what they bring off. I want to warn them, do not allow these people to tell you what you must do. And you must stop and think. You must always do what you believe is just and fair in pursuit of the African rights in this country. Right? We can't let up. These guys will want to make us slaves again. We have to stop it. That fight back. Them are the quality ministers that we get. They can come out and they can talk all the bad things. I look at one the other day. I look at a clip, cussing out the leaders, the people who are selected to be on the panel, calling them all kind of names. Let me tell you something. Black people in this country don't go and tell Indian people what they must be saying, when they must assemble. We don't get in the way. We don't get in the business.
Why don't we do that, Lincoln? What's the reason that we don't do it?
Because we are a civilized people.
Thank you. We are socialized differently. The fact that they think that they can tell us what to do speaks about their sense of superiority. We don't do it because we are not a people who believe in racial superiority. That's why we don't do it. It's a simple. They do it because they feel that there's a manifest destiny for them to govern Guyana. And that's
Let me tell you something. Yeah. When we talk about inclusion, right? And we talk about Article 30 and inclusionary democracy, we never take any position that the Indian community must be marginalized, must not get anything. Why some writers and commentators from the Indian community take any right to tell us Who must lead
They
us?
think we are inferior to them, Lincoln. That's what I'm saying all night. These people are not willy-nilly.
Yeah. Tell us who must lead us.
They're coming from a thought process. And until we get our teeth into that the actions of the PPP government is reflective of a deep prejudice, a deep sense of superiority over Africa. Once
Those
we get
people,
that,
let me make it again.
Then it's
Let me make
easy
it again.
to press on.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. If as leaders we can be respectful to each other and demonstrate a level of civility, how is it that how is it that you want to tell me what we should talk about? First of all, you gotta be civil to me. I gotta be civil with you. If we are going to talk about the Constitution of this country, what the Constitution says, it requires that level of civility. If we are talking about equality, equity, and equality in the system, we got to be civil to each other. And every time we talk about it, leaders from the other community come to cuss you out, coming to demonize us. We got to stop, man. We got to stop with this behavior. And we have to tell these guys where to get to hell off.
We have to take power from those guys, and then they will get to hell off. Telling them, not shifting them. Power, P-O-W-E-R. That's the game. That's the ride. Lincoln, closing thoughts.
We gotta fight David. We gotta do more than we're doing.
We're doing that.
We gotta stop talking, and we gotta carry this thing to another level.
We gotta seize power.
We have to do that. And I want to repeat again for the third time.
Either we share it.
We gotta protect the ancestral lands.
Either we share the power, and if they don't want to share it, then we take it for ourselves.
Yeah.
This is power. I would rather share the power because I recognize that half the country supports the PPP. I don't blame them. They support whoever they want to support. But when it comes to the power, let us share the power. I noticed somebody respond to you that I was on some program and they were talking about balancing the army and the police. And I said, I will only agree to balancing the army and the police if you balance the money. And I'm clear about that, right? We don't have money. We have the army. You all want to balance the army? Go ahead and balance it. But when you balance it, we want you to balance the money. Balance the money. And you're not going to balance the money once you have power in your hands. So I have got to be at the table to exercise power. That's the word tonight. From the apartheid state, we have to ride on to power. It's now that time for you all to go over to Brother Sherrod. Lincoln, your closing thoughts?
Let me see the high point I want to, for this week, I want to say that the guys have done a good job on Sunday. There is more work to be done. I want to call on my comrades across the country. Let us mobilize. Let us mobilize against the onslaught by a government that has been elected to address the concerns and interests of all the people. To let them know that we are dissatisfied as a people and they need to turn not turn and look at us. That only they have decided that they are going to talk with the Amerindian community, which I don't envy the Amerindians. They deserve it. They're throwing money in that community. They're talking with the leaders, but they have decided that they will give nothing to the African community and they will not speak with the leaders. You don't want to, you have decided you're not going to speak. Then one of our strategy must be to make them speak. They must come to the table in some form or the other.
Lincoln Lewis there said they must come to the table. I agree with Lincoln. Come to the table. Let's talk about a clean voters list. Come to the table. Let's talk about power. Don't come to the table for us to talk nonsense. There are things that we need, and we need power. We need power. Come to the table to talk about the power. Come to the table to talk about the money, the oil money. Come to the table to talk about clean voters list and a clean electoral machinery. That's my line in the sand. You are coming to the table to skin teeth. I don't want to skin teeth with you. I don't want to shake your hand. I want power. I want oil money. That's power. I want a clean voters list so we can have free and fair elections. I don't want to talk to you about nothing else. Good night. Goodbye. Thank you very much, Brother Lincoln. Tomorrow night, I'm going to try to get Brother Vincent on to talk to us about that lawsuit that he's about to bring against that dirty mouth. That's you. Good night.